Hi. I didn't expect this to work because I've been trying for like the last 15 minutes to get rid of some files that I have on my computer so that I can have space to make this video. So excuse me, I just finished eating, so I'm a little burpy, gaseous, whatever. So, it's been a while since the last time I made a video, and trust me, guys, you have been on my mind. I've been thinking about you pretty much every day, every single day, day and night, thinking about, okay, I need to make a video. What video am I going to make? I think I've even tried to do it a few times, but I don't know. Excuse me, something just stopped me from making a video. But whatever. So I am here because I was told that I need to just tell my story. Tell your story, Toro, and that will bring people to you. So that's what I'm going to do today. I'm going to tell my story. I'm going to talk about kind of like my life experience and why I'm going after what it is that I'm going after. So if you don't know much about me right now, I am creating an online business to serve women of color to help them just love themselves and accept themselves and take care of who they are and allow themselves to be who they are. And that is my story pretty much. Or that's why my story is why I'm doing this sort of coaching business. So, what is that on my head? Anyway, I think that's a scar for here. Anyway, so just to get to the point, let me start talking to you about kind of like my life experience. So, if I could think back, I just had a very kind of rocky upbringing, kind of tumultuous, if I could call it that. So I had a mom that was really abusive. She was really physically violent and also very emotionally abusive. And at the time when I was going through what I was going through with her, I didn't know that she potentially had like a mental disorder. And so maybe that's why she acted the way she did. Um, so I grew up being sickly. So I grew up with sickle cell anemia. And that was really hard and really difficult to deal with. But on top of it, I also had a mom that was abusive, and very like physically abusive, and also really emotionally abusive. So, and I don't even know how to talk about this. So excuse me if I'm like lost for words or whatever, because I'm trying to figure out how to talk about my life experience. So anyway, it was a hard upbringing, and I think the reason why it was hard was because I just didn't know what it was to love yourself and to respect yourself and to be happy with who you were and what you had to offer in life. Because my mom was someone who was so like hard line. She was the kind of person that was like, no, you need to do better. This isn't good enough. Like, nothing you do is good enough. You have to be perfect, basically. So being raised in a very like um, stressful, very a lot of like expectations put on you type of household, um, was overwhelming for me. And for a long time, I had a hard time just loving myself. I had a hard time being okay with who I was. Um, I really had to kind of be this perfect person when there was no such thing as perfection. Um, but basically, I had to be someone who just never talked back, did what she was told, and listened to whatever it is that I was being told to do, which is basically what I just said. Sorry. So I don't know, like, so even for stupid things, like I would get hit for, like for being sick. I got hit for waking them up at night when I couldn't sleep and I was in pain and I needed medication. I got hit for just stupid stuff, and looking back, she just wasn't a happy person. My mom wasn't a happy person. She didn't love her life. She didn't appreciate what she had. And all of that came out through her anger and through her expression, because she didn't know how else to express herself. She didn't have any outlets to kind of support her in the way that she was thinking or support her in what she was going through. So I guess the best way, or the only other way she knew how to express herself, was by being hard and being aggressive on her children. Now, don't get me wrong, I wasn't the only one who was going through it, but I think out of the four of us, she had four children. Um, I got it the one of the hardest, but my sister, who's the oldest, also had it very, very hard because she was the oldest and she had to deal with our mom for quite a while before the rest of us came. And then we had two other siblings, the two middle siblings. They had their own experience with her too. Um, but not quite like the way I did, and not quite like the way our oldest sister did. But yeah, so just because of the things that I've been through with my mom, it really made me kind of it really made me extremely hard on myself. Um, I wasn't very loving to myself. I didn't know how to express myself. I kept a lot of things bottled up. I kept a lot of my emotions hidden. I really didn't communicate well with people. Um, and I didn't really trust myself. I had a hard time trusting my ideas. I had a hard time trusting my thoughts. I had a hard time trusting my actions. I didn't know I could, um, if I could do something without it turning out like horribly wrong. And I want to curse, but I'm trying not to. So I just felt like I just couldn't relax, um, and that I couldn't make mistakes. So if that's one thing, I felt like I could not make a mistake, and because of that, I always had this like do as you're told type of lifestyle. Like, do what they tell you, and you'll be okay. Just listen to what they say, and everything will be fine. Like, they know better. So it was very hard for me to trust my instincts. It was very hard for me to trust. My lip is really shining. Sorry, guys. It was just very hard for me to trust who I was and what I wanted. But there came a time after, so my mom eventually ended up leaving us and going off to London to do her own thing. And I honestly swear that was like the best thing that ever happened to me, because during that time, I think, a junior or senior. I think I was a junior in high school. And I feel like that's when I started letting myself relax more. So I just had more time to be me, a teenager, had more time to just like just enjoy life a bit more. And so because of that, like I got to do some really fun things. Like I think around that time I got to travel to Canada for the first time. Um, and and I just got to do a lot of really fun things. So I went to Canada and I went to prom and I don't know, like I could let boys be friends with me. Yeah, because like when she was around, like there was no whatsoever space or time for boys. So I really didn't have much of any good connections or friendships until after my mom left us. And when I say left us, so she left me and my dad um, because she wanted to go off and just do her own thing and live her own life because she just wasn't happy with her life at the time and with the way things were and with my dad. Um, so yeah, so that's what happened. So anyway, so she left and then I started feeling like more at ease with myself and like things were okay. It was okay if I got sick. It was okay if I didn't do certain things. But I was still definitely hard on myself. So it took me a very long time to stop being hard on myself and stop being so critical of who I was because for a very long time, so from being a junior in high school all the way up to about my probably all the way up until I was about 24, 25, I was really critical and really hard on myself. Um, and I just didn't, it was hard for me to kind of just accept myself basically. Until I started doing the work and until I started like really like wanting more from my life than just being so appeasing to people, and that appeasing came from my mom. So I had to do what my mom said. I couldn't talk back. I couldn't speak up. I couldn't like have an opinion. Um, I was really docile, to be honest with you. Um, but of course, I also had a really like don't fuck with me attitude because I hated it when someone took advantage of me or someone like tried to get one over me or something like that. And I mean like obviously it happened and there were times where I did like stand up like and let people know like hey, you're not going to do this to me. But there was also times where I was just like I didn't have the confidence to say anything, and so it happens, which that's life. Like stuff like that happens all the time. But but when it happened at that time, it was always a victim state. Like it was always like, oh, I can't believe that this person did this to me. And I always made it out to be like, oh, the world was against me when in actuality, it really wasn't that way. It was just the way things happened. And it was just a really like poor outlook on life and a poor outlook on my experiences at the time. But yeah, so for a long time I felt like I didn't have a voice and I didn't have like um my own way of expressing myself. And that's just because of the way I grew up. But now I'm such a stronger person, and to be honest with you, I've been through a lot and there's so much more to tell. But this is kind of like the base of it. So just trying to um, trying to, I don't know, I don't even know what I'm trying to say, but basically, I knew that I wanted to see more from my life and have more for my life. And when I mean have more, I wanted to have like really good relationships, and I really wanted to have like just people who were loving and peaceful in my life. And not saying that I didn't have that, because I did, but I think I just didn't want to be afraid to open up who I was and be vulnerable. And that has been my struggle for like ever, is being vulnerable and being open and letting people in, um, and being able to like express myself and being okay with people's reactions. So yeah, so for a long time, like I didn't express myself because I was afraid of people's reaction and what they would think and how they would view me. So yeah, so I think and this is funny, like I even had social anxiety, and I didn't even know that I had social anxiety. I just thought like that's just the way I was. Like I had a hard time being around a lot of people, for fear of judgment. So I was very judgmental on myself, and I think like I was even critical of people, but I just thought like that's just the way it was. Like, and I didn't know that, no, like you don't have to think that way. You don't have to feel that way. That's not normal. I mean, like it's normal, but I think to the extent that I was experiencing it, wasn't supposed to be that way. Like you're supposed to be not only loving to yourself but also loving to others, because you know that while you're not perfect, neither is anyone else. And because you know that you're not perfect, you can accept the non-perfect in others. And I didn't have that at the time. I didn't have that, hey, you don't have to be perfect. You don't always have to have everything go right. Things do go wrong. And because I always put all these high expectations on myself, I also put high expectations on other people. And whenever they didn't live up to that, um, when there were issues, I had issues with people. And I just needed to realize like people aren't going to meet your standards, and that's okay. And it's not about them meeting your standards, it's about you meeting them where they're at. And I needed to do that for myself. I needed to meet me where I was at and be okay with it. And so that's what I did. I started learning to love myself. I started learning to be okay with who I was. I started learning to just accept who I was and not be so hard on myself about the things that I wasn't, or the things that I were, or the things that I wanted to be. So yeah, so I think because of my experiences, I realized like, oh my gosh, I I I lost my train of thought. Okay, so because of my experiences, I thought like, oh my gosh, like I I needed to be okay with who I was in order to do and have the things that I wanted to do in life. And I wanted to be someone who could create her own business. And I've become that person, and it's because I've learned that I'm okay the way that I am. And so this is a big part of my work as a coach. So it's just learning to work on the inner, in order for it to reflect on the outside, so that you can go after the things you want. Because it really starts with who you are, and it really starts with how you feel about yourself, what you think about yourself, how you treat yourself. It all starts there. And once all these things are in line, and they don't have to be perfectly in line, you're always going to be learning about yourself. You're always going to be growing. But I feel like once you get a handle on who you are, um, it makes it a lot simpler to get the things you want out of life. So once I started getting a handle on who I was and loving myself for it, it made me a more confident person, and it made me somewhat more relaxed about where I was at in life, because I think I was so hard on myself about being a certain age and not having certain things at that age that I didn't really appreciate where I was at. And so because of that, I couldn't move from where I was to where I wanted to be until I started appreciating who I was and where I was at. Yeah. So basically, that's me in a nutshell. I hope that makes sense. If not, don't worry. I'm still going to be talking more about like parts of my life that I've gone through and experienced and how it's gotten me to where I am now. Um, and yeah, so I don't know if you can relate with this. I hope you do. I hope you can. And I definitely didn't want to make this too long of a video, but it's already going on like 22 minutes. So because of that, I'm going to stop. And I just want anyone out there to just kind of be able to see that you're not alone. There are some people who have gone through a lot worse than me. There are a lot of people who have gone through things like I have gone through. And I just hope you can recognize yourself in my story and be able to work on overcoming where you are right now and start loving yourself, start accepting who you are, and start allowing you to be the you that you want to be, regardless of what the world might think, regardless of what your family might think, regardless of what people might say about you. You know who you are. You know what lives inside of you. You know what drives you. And just accept that and live it. I know I am, so you should too. Okay, so because of that, I will say